Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Books, Scares, and Purrs. My name's Leslie, and Tariel is here in the background replacing Ginger for this session. All right, today we're going to talk about top 5 moments of Interview with a Vampire, the 6th episode. This is going to be, I'm going to try to keep this tight. Um, as you know, my top 5 is just a way for me to structure and talk about the show because I'll just talk about every single moment. I'll start reenacting. And so for this segment at the end, I am going to discuss some Easter eggs, and I brought along my books with me for this discussion because it's gonna come in handy for the session. And I have it on the pin photo, but I'll tell you now. Anytime I have these discussions, it's always going to be a spoiler chat for the books and the show and where it's going. So yeah, and also this episode, I think I have more questions than I do answers. So expect that today. All right. Oh yeah, top 5 moments, but in no particular order, right? Basically, I'm just talking about the show chronologically. So, first top moment I would say was the restaurant in Dubai. Daniel meets with Raglan James again, and we see that the real Rashid goes to the restroom, comes back. But between with that interaction, here's my first question: what do you think is going on with the Rashid? Because I don't want him to be a vampire, is what I'm saying. I don't want that to that reveal to happen again. The show already did that with Armand. Um, I did notice when Rashid was eating his food, he went to put like what was it, an edamame in his mouth, and it like fell out, and he just kind of went along with the conversation, and so that could have been like an actor thing, like I'm just doing the scene, or if Rashid's a vampire, he doesn't, they don't have any, they could kind of like eat a little bit. Or he could just kind of be doing that thing like pretending to eat. Additionally, Raglan James says something like about Rashid when he goes to the restroom, like, oh yeah, he loves the soaps. Um, and I know Raglan James is saying that basically just letting Daniel Malloy know that he's gonna give us time to chat. But I was also thinking about the fact that in Interview with the Vampire, the vampires tend to hyperfixate on things because when you live forever, what is time, right? For Armand, it's electronics. For Louis, I think it's books. He could just get really lost in books and start to hyperfixate. And so I wonder if Rashid was a vampire, if that would be a thing. But anyways, the other theory that I have is maybe he's some sort of wizard because there's the Mayfair Witches show, and the Telemasca tends to um, monitor what do you call it? The supernatural, right? That they just kind of like document and gain knowledge and report, but they don't. They try their best not to interfere, and whenever they do, it does not go well. So, anyways, that was kind of like my line of thinking. All right, my second top 5 moment is basically the whole scene with Madeline when some people come to attack her at her place of business. So within that scene, we're really seeing like the viciousness of humanity, and that's something that Anne Rice touched upon um, throughout her books, but also from writing of the character, the point of view of Lestat. She's just constantly bringing up like, well, yeah, this is my vampire nature, but we are a part of nature itself, and humanity is incredibly vicious. And so, gosh, that's what I love about this show is that it's really tapping into um, times in history where we see how uh, just terrible and vicious people can be to each other. And so we see that when there's an attempt to attack Madeline. And also, once Claudia comes in to intercede, I love that scene so much because it seemed to mirror season one, episode one, with how Lestat reveals himself to Louis, and that yeah, she's doing something vicious, but she's also protecting Madeline, which also that is different from Lestat, right? In episode one, season one, but we just see that like uh, carnage has taken place, and how Madeline um, responds or doesn't respond to what's happening in front of her, and as distraught as she is for what happened, she's just uh, very accepting of um, of what's happening. And I also like the idea that Claudia asks Madeline to turn off the light, or like where are the lights to turn it off. And I feel like that's a nod to the title of this episode, right? We're really talking about darkness. All right, my third top five moment is the conversation between Madeline and Armand. Um, Armand is already like all the way frustrated with Claudia, but he agrees to have a conversation with Madeline and is really trying to get at if she's. I think he goes into the conversation trying to point out how Madeline isn't going to be ready for what it is to be a vampire, and really trying to interrogate her about like um, what eternity really means. You know, it's called the dark gift, but it's not really a gift, is it? And so, yeah. And what we learned from this interaction is I kind of feel like we're tapping into someone like Madeline that really knows themselves. And ultimately, maybe the best person to be a vampire is someone that identifies as a monster, right? Because that is their nature, and that's kind of like the sin of Louis, right? Is how he can accept who he is. So, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. I was going to go down that road, um, but we also see Madeline eating an apple, and I like the choice to have Madeline use a spoon to scrape at the apple. Um, I felt like in the books, well, let's say the first book, Into the Vampire, there's so much religious symbolism and like religious conversation Anne Rice is having in that book. And so the fact that she's scraping at an apple, I felt like is reminiscent of, let's say, Eve um, trying to get at knowledge. And so she's trying to get at something. And then we see that Armand takes the apple away from her. Like the power is within him to give her this gift, right? And he's taking it away. So we see them have conversations, and something that I thought was a great nod to the books is how when Armand is asking um, Madeline about like what are you gonna do when like the eras change, right? And I think that's an indication that we're learning that Armand, like in the books, he's seeking a way to uh, transition into the new era. And the television show Armand is not like even recognizing like the shifts that happened, and that's pointed out by Madeline. And I just love that scene because Madeline goes really toe to toe with Armand. And once again, we see that time and time again, Armand really just underestimates other people because of his experiences. And he keeps thinking that, well, his experiences are going to be everyone else's experiences. He keeps thinking that his experience equates to wisdom, but it doesn't. And so we see how, like, with Lestat and in the past, and Santiago currently, and now Madeline, and Daniel in the present, and also maybe in the past, he keeps actually, yeah, in San Francisco in the past, keeps underestimating these people around him and thinks, you know, whether it doesn't matter their age, they're just not seeing like the big picture of what's to come because he thinks again, once again, what he's been through is going to be ultimately what's going to happen to Madeline, which is basically just a projection of him of his own issues, basically. And lastly, I think from that scene, I like how Madeline points out that she entangled herself in a dangerous love, and she's doing it once more. And she also refers to herself like as a monster. Like becoming a vampire is not going to be that big of like a leap for her, because it's something that she already is, and something that society has already deemed her. And I thought that was like a really incredible way to tap into the insights of that character, but also how fitting Madeline is for Claudia. All right, my number four moment is making Madeline into a vampire. Um, there's like a record that's playing, or there's a song that Madeline is listening to, and it's "My Heart Is an Island Bird." I haven't looked up the song yet, but once again, we see that birds come up again and again in the show, and I think that really is an indication of the show tapping into what Anne Rice wrote, which is, about the viciousness of nature and like the darkness of vampiric nature and how that's like intertwined. And so I think that's why it keeps coming up and up again. And I found the quote in the book. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, you know what? I think it's in the Vampire Lestat. Yeah, it's in the Vampire Lestat on page 208. There's like a whole paragraph. And so it says, I saw a bird soaring out of a cave above the open sea, and there was a something terrifying about the bird and the endless waves over which it flew. Higher and higher it went, and the sky turned to silver, and then gradually the silver faded and the sky went dark. The darkness of evening, nothing to fear, really nothing. Less darkness, but it was falling gradually and inexorably over nothing save this one tiny creature cawing in the wind above a great wasteland that was the world, empty caves, empty sands, empty seas. And so I think that's also part of why we see uh, bird symbolism throughout these two seasons. And I'm assuming that's going to continue throughout, but I just absolutely love that inclusion over and over again. And at some point, I don't know when, it's going to be like next year. I'm definitely going to just dig into like all the bird symbolism. I think I'd like to make a video about that, or like connect it to some other material that I'm reading, because there's a couple of other books. Oh, you know what? I didn't look it up, but yeah, I'm gonna have to save it for another segment because I was thinking about bird symbolism, um, and actually also how that relates to the Bible and a couple of other authors. But I'm not going to go there today. So yeah, so they make Madeline into a vampire, or they're making her, and as we know, Claudia is not capable of making another vampire because she's too small. Her body is not like set up to do that. Her body hasn't reached adulthood, and so she's forever in this state. And so I felt like the scene of Louis and Claudia drinking from Madeline was just a way for her to be like a part of the process. I mean, she's gonna get enticed anyways and want to drink from her, because that's what's happening in front of her. But I felt like that was like, uh, yeah, just an important way for Claudia to be a part of something that she will never be able to do. Um, so I thought that was really beautiful, and I also thought that I we're having so little time with Madeline. I like that we see the images of throughout her life, kind of like what was mentioned in the first season, right? Because Louis has mentioned that he could see um, like little bits of people's lives flutter into his mind. And so the fact that he's seeing that, I thought was also really important because that's also something we know happened when he was turned into a vampire, right? But yeah, we kind of see like the viciousness of life and death, and Madeline being shamed. And so I felt like we see all that. And so I think it all adds up to, as a viewer, I could understand how someone like Madeline sees Claudia and could see past her exterior and see that she's who she really is, like the monster that she is, just through the conversations that Madeline and Claudia have had. You know, they have that like initial interaction where Madeline like dismisses her for being someone so young, but right away with the conversations they have, there's like the switch that the actress does, and we realize that she knows there's more going on with Claudia. And also when Madeline goes to the theatrical performance with Claudia, you kind of see on her face she's just not into the play at all. She sees that this play is about a little girl, but she sees that Claudia isn't. Um, yeah. Anyway, so there's a lot going on there, um, and so yeah, it's just there's a lot of like horror elements to this book. Um, you know, the books are horror genre, and so we see that like who could ever engage with Claudia in the way that Claudia wants, unless um, they were ultimately need to be like equally a monster, basically. So yeah, going on from there, the last moment, top five moment, is going to be Lestat appearing at the end of the episode, and man, what a scene stealer! Right at the end, he's looking at the mirror, and I think it's Sam. One of the vampires says you have like 10 minutes, and he hears it, and he's like, "All right, 10 minutes." And so he's there smoking a cigarette, and I'm so excited for what's to come because I don't know how this moment's gonna play out. Um, I mean, this is from the books. I cannot wait for next week. So let me know what you think about how it's gonna play out. We've seen the trailers, we've seen the silhouette of Lestat in darkness taking off the jacket. So I feel like he's I don't know which part that is that I feel like that might be the beginning before he goes to perform, or is it after? Um, but yeah, there's just a lot going on. All right, so that was my top five moments, but now I'm gonna talk Easter eggs basically and a couple other things, but I definitely want to talk about some Easter eggs. And one of them was like the really cool play where Ben Daniels is once again like framed close to the camera, so close to us as the audience. I totally have to go back. I'm looking at my notes right here. All right, so where is it? There's a chunk of the dialogue from this play that Sam the vampire wrote, um, that Armand's and us are watching, but it's actually from the books, and I love it because it's oh my goodness, oh my gosh, I can't think of the I don't remember his first name. The last name is Pham, the character with that's standing next to Ben Daniels. Um, the actor is KP, and so he's actually doing like Louis' part, and Ben Daniels I think is doing like Lestat's lines. And in the book it says, "I'm leaving you. I said to him at once. I wish to tell you that now." And so then Lestat goes, "I thought as much," he answered, sitting back in the chair. "And I thought as well that you would make a flowery announcement. Tell me what a monster I am, what a vulgar fiend." And Lestat says, "I make no judgment upon you. I'm not interested in you. I am interested in my own nature." And then they kind of go back and forth. Um, and then so later on, we hear in the play um, and Daniel says something like, "What do you think a vampire is?" And Louis says, "I don't pretend to know." And let's see. Oh, and that was page like 79, I think. That was page, yeah, 79 and 80. And then on the play goes to page 139 of Interview with the Vampire, and that's where that dialogues come from. And it says, "What does it mean to die when you can live until the end of the world? And what is the end of the world except a phrase?" And then it kind of skips some and it says, "I know I had now lived in 2 centuries," and then kind of goes on. And then we hear Ben Daniel say, "Illuminated by a light, which was not a light like the light by which God made the world before he had made light. Ticking, 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 the preciousness, um, the precision of the clock and a room as vast as the universe." So I just like that it came from the book, and I completely hunted it down in the book to share with you. And I think that's it for that. But so I like that Easter egg of hearing like the dialogue from the books. That happens actually way more than I thought, where I'm hearing like dialogue just get picked up um, from the prose of the book, and it's just been chef's kiss to hear. And so yeah, I really like that. There's another Easter egg that I want to discuss, and that was um, Raglan James says something to Daniel like, "Oh, if I was able to like jump in your body, I would be running like the Telemasca by now." And that's a reference to Tale of the Body Thief. And I was so delighted to hear that because we're also getting a glimpse into who Raglan James is, because it sounds like something that when you don't know him, it just sounds like, you know, he's complimenting Daniel. But there's something more sinister going on beneath that. There's another, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm gonna call it an Easter egg. Um, but there is this like whole there's this tension in Dubai about Armand never making a vampire, and he says the whole process disgusts him, but it's not really just about that. It's about not wanting to curse someone else with being a vampire. And Armand knows that once you make someone a vampire, you lose a connection, right? This telepathic connection with a person that you're going to make a vampire. And so that's another reason why Armand doesn't want to make someone into a vampire. But because we're hearing this, I think it's going to tip us off with what's going to happen in episode 8. And I also want to know what you think. I think by the end of the season, Armand's going to make Daniel a vampire. And I'm wondering if when he makes him a vampire, when I'm trying to see, when Daniel drinks from Armand, is he going to get his memories back? Like, are we going to see a flood of memories of young Daniel and Armand together? I'm just wondering about that. All right, I'm sorry, I was loud outside for a second. Probably like the last little Easter egg I came across was Santiago saying um, at the theater on stage that, "Hey, if you want to kill your lover or f your mother, you're gonna have to wait." That is an Easter egg for what's going to come from the Vampire Lestat. And so I like, there's also another meta conversation that they're having in the play that was practice about Guido. And Santiago keeps saying, "Where's Guido in the story?" And I felt like that's actually like a meta conversation about how Lestat has not really, like the real Lestat has not been in this season. That's how I took it. And I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, I think that's everything. And lastly, something that's not even an Easter egg, it's not a part of my top 5, but I can't help but discuss because the first time I watched the episode, this went over my head. I think I was too like in shock. And so upon a second watch of the show, um we learned that the vampire coven was stealing items. One is a telescope lens stolen from the observatory of I think it's Miad. I don't know how to say it. I'm gonna butcher the name of the observatory. Um, so I figured they're gonna use the telescope um to unalive. I want to say Madeline. I think that Claudia is going to go out in a different way. I think Claudia is going to get put in the box with the rats. I think that's what's going to happen. But I think because Claudia said how uh, they disposed of the bodies to one of the vampires, I think that's how they're going to get rid of Madeline. I think they're not going to get rid of them in the same ways. And so, yeah, it's gonna be a terrible episode. Next next episode's gonna be wild. And I also don't know what's gonna happen. Like I just feel like Daniel's there's no way Daniel's not going to like overstep and point out to Louis like his faults, not just um Armand's, but really coming after both of them for what happened because like the storytelling is so great and they really lay the groundwork for what doesn't work. Like all the holes in the story that aren't really quite matching up. And also the vampires were apparently or I'm assuming they're the vampires were at the Eiffel Tower and apparently they're facing south by southwest, muttering in unison. I think they all came together to contact Lestat. I think that's what happened. They figured out that he's been gone from a while from his financial counselors, and that they came together to search him out. And I think that's how he ended up being there, is by them reaching out and saying like, "Hey, this trial is going to happen or whatever." So I definitely think that Lestat doesn't want to be there. And I think he's actually there because he actually wants to save Louis and Claudia. I think. Like he's gonna give it to them just as much as they got in a way, but I just don't think he wants to be there. He doesn't he told them in season one he doesn't the vampires out there are vicious. And so if he knows the vampires are vicious and they're calling out them, if it was just him, he would stay away. But because Louis and Claudia are there, he shows up. At least that's what I think. But let me know what you think is going to happen in the next episode. I have, once again, way more questions than I have answers. And yeah, I can't wait for this show to wreck me. It's gonna be a mess. um, if you've been watching this whole time, thank you. Like, subscribe. I definitely look forward to what you think. So I'll see you in the chat.